Peter, can you tell us who plays with you on stage, actually?
Yes, at the moment we have on keyboard synthesizers, Bayeti, on drums, Jerry Marotta, on guitar, Sid McGuinness, and on bass, Tony Levin. So it's a smaller band than I started off with, but I'm enjoying it more.
You use the mic to go down into the audience. What is it that makes you want that kind of contact with the audience?
I'm a very good pickpocket. And if I haven't paid enough for the tickets. No, actually, it was by chance someone gave me this thing here. And we're just good friends. So I began playing around with it, and I could sing outside the building. And then I went down into the audience and climbed up on the balconies. And it just gave me a chance to create very close contact with the audience and a bit of, I don't know, excitement in the unexpected, because not too many singers perform from amongst the audience. Now, there's a little radio transmitter in the bottom end here, and this sends out a signal, and there are two aerials either side of the stage, so that the sound is then picked up through these. And you can go quite some distance away from it before you lose the volume.
You're now also recognized as a composer. Was it difficult of getting rid of the old image of Peter Gabriel?
Well, I think, yeah, it takes a bit of time maybe, and it'll still take a while before people have forgotten the old days. Not forgotten, but that the new stuff has had time for people to get familiar with. But the fact that I've had the opportunity to write the songs and arrange them as a songwriter's album rather than as a performer's album has helped me.
Are you concentrating on composing now, or also on the stage act, or?
On the writing.
On the writing?
Yeah. The stage thing is no costumes, no slide projection, no lasers. It's very simple. I spend half the time at the piano and half the time jumping around a bit, but it's not full of sort of visual effects that I used to use within Genesis.
And how long were you on £10 a week for?
That was about a year and a half, I think. Then it was 15, and 25, then 50, then 100.
But this is at a time when most people thought of Genesis as the top-earning British group.
Well, I don't know. Genesis was getting towards that point about the time I left, I suppose, and then we were taking out 100 a week each, and there'd been a period, particularly 72, 73, when we built up a lot of debts, and they hadn't been fully paid off when I left, in fact, because it always takes a lot longer, say in record royalties also, for money to come through than you would imagine. No, we were always in debt, and the bigger the band, the bigger the debt. But there is a certain point which probably a lot less artists cross over than would be imagined. When you're dealing in sort of huge figures, and when the enormous figures that you're grossing suddenly are in excess of the enormous figures that are your expenses, and so the actual amount of money left over is quite considerable. That hadn't happened by the time I left.
What about the period before a band has achieved a record contract?
It's often a time when you're trying very hard to get gigs, when money is very hard to come by. And people are very tempted to sign the first bit of paper that's waved at them. They think, at last we can get our music onto plastic, and it's the big time. But unfortunately, what often happens is they sign contracts which get them on a very low royalty rate for a long period. I think royalty rate should be a minimum of 10%, and I think contracts should be a maximum of 3 years. Yeah, I mean, I've never yet in my life signed a contract that I haven't regretted very soon after. Well, I'm told that it sold about 800,000 worldwide, which was more than I expected. The cost of making it was considerable. I think it was about 80 or 90,000 pounds, which was the way I chose to do it in America and using American session musicians and an expensive American producer. But I felt it was worth it for me at that point. And I think it'll be a long while still before I actually recover all of the costs. Royalties can take, particularly overseas, so 2 or 3 years before they actually appear. When Mr. Taxman is knocking on your door asking for all the receipts for the expenses that you know very well you paid out money for, then it can prove to be very expensive. It really is important that people take it seriously as a business, and if musicians aren't going to do it themselves, then they need someone standing over them and writing everything down, because they'll have to pay for it at some time or another.
Was in town playing to a packed house at Maple Leaf Gardens. His latest LP is at number 6 on the album chart, and his single Games Without Frontiers is rapidly becoming a hit. It's interesting to note that when he released this new album, his American record company dropped him like a hot potato, hinting that he was committing commercial suicide.
Well, I think initially I knew they didn't like it. They sent someone over, an A&R person, who, other than attempting to encourage me to make one track sound like the Doobie Brothers, didn't really like the way it was going. I think they felt that with my second album I moved a little to the left, and with this album that I'd gone off the edge of the universe, and it wasn't an area that they were particularly familiar with or wanted to be involved with, and didn't think was going to generate them any income. So both the album and myself as an artist were given the big elbow. So, which, I mean, I thought they would just put it out and not bother with it. But it's fine with me, because if they don't want to work it, then maybe someone else can. And then the album, particularly in Europe, has done very well. So that's been somewhat encouraging. And in fact, I think Atlantic did try and buy it back again. So there's a certain amount of self-satisfaction from that.
What point have you reached now with this new album?
The main thing for me was just I spent some time reappraising all the way that I wrote the stuff. Normally I write things, chords, melodies first, and the lyrics are sort of on a separate parallel course. And this time I tried rhythm first. I've been given a little rhythm box, which is fairly simple, and a really mindless idiot can operate it. But it still allows you to program your own patterns. And because it was hanging in the music, the rhythm, what I put on top of it was much simpler as a result. So the style of writing changed.
Ever since 1975, there have been a variety of rumors floating around as to why you left Genesis. I talked with Mike Rutherford the other day. He said you left possibly because you didn't want to be in a group anymore, that you felt compromised.
I think there were a whole variety of reasons, really. I think that would be one way of looking at it. Personally, I didn't like what I felt I was becoming in that role, and I did feel that the thing itself, because of its success, was becoming a little more conservative. You know, now if I want to do something which appears stupid or unnecessarily dangerous or risky to the other people I work with, I'm entitled to do it because it's fundamentally my thing which I'm putting at risk. Whereas in a band, in a sort of democratic setup, which we were, it was other people's livelihoods that I was fucking up.
What's the concept behind the song Games Without Frontiers?
The idea that perhaps adults seen as kids, and countries behaving toward each other in a way that adults are unable to behave, so that, i.e. through war, etc., different set of moral codes. At the end of this decade,
music is as healthy as it was at the end of the 60s. It's very strong, a lot of new young bands, a lot of new ideas, and seems to be a lot happening. But I think there was a middle period which was a bit directionless and which was kicked into gear again by the punk and new wave. And once all those musicians go through their experimental periods, their psychedelic periods, and God knows what else, and become rich and fat, then the new lean and hungry will kick them out, and so the cycle moves on.
Peter, nachdem du 2 Soloalben nur in Englisch produziert hast, hast du dein drittes auch in einer deutschen Version herausgebracht. Ursprünglich war ja das nicht geplant. Ich habe gehört, du hast Probleme gehabt mit der Veröffentlichung dieses Albums in den USA.
Ja,
die amerikanische Plattenfirma war der Ansicht, dass die LP Mist ist. Kommerzieller Selbstmord haben sie es genannt. Das Plattenlabel hat mich fallen lassen. Eine andere Firma hat nun die LP in den USA herausgebracht und sie verkauft sich besser als die ersten 2.
Well, and it's now selling better than the other 2, so I'm pleased for that.
Peter, on your early tours, schon bei deinen Tourneen als Sänger von Genesis hast du Ansagen in der jeweiligen Landessprache gemacht. Wie bist du auf die Idee gekommen, ein ganzes Album Deutsch zu singen?
Yeah. Well, originally it was from a concert. As long as I've been going to other countries, I've been trying.
Die ursprüngliche Idee kam von diesen Konzerten. Immer wenn wir in andere Länder gereist sind, habe ich versucht, Ansagen in der Landessprache zu machen. Dann kam die Idee, auch einen Song in dieser Art zu spielen. Me and My Teddy Bear, eine kabarettistische Nummer, haben wir damals in Französisch und Deutsch gemacht. Die Leute haben das geschätzt. So habe ich mir gedacht, ich versuche es mit einem ganzen Album. Ich habe Fernschreiben in alle Niederlassungen der Plattenfirma geschickt, ob sie interessiert werden, so eine Platte zu machen und noch einmal 5.000 bis 8.000 Pfund für die Aufnahmen hineinzustecken. Die einzige, die daran echtes Interesse gezeigt hat, war die deutsche Plattenfirma.
And the only company really that showed any interest was the German company. So that decided the choice.
Für mich war das ein Experiment. Ich glaube, es ist recht stark geworden. Es gibt so ein nachlässiges Gehaben englischer und amerikanischer Musiker, wenn sie in Länder kommen, wo man nicht ihre Sprache spricht und sie glauben, dass sie dort spielen können wie zu Hause.
Places that don't speak their language and they just assume they can play as if they were at home. So it was something for me that I wanted to try.
Das muss ja ein eigenartiges Gefühl sein, die ganze Arbeit noch einmal zu machen.
Wir haben bei bestimmten Titeln in erster Linie die Stimme neu dazu gemischt. Aber bei 3 Titeln, Not One of Us, Through the Wire und Pico, haben wir alles neu abgemischt. Ich habe versucht, etwas anderes zu machen, als nur das englische Album in Deutsch zu wiederholen. Einige der Übersetzungen, die Horst Königstein gemacht hat, sind sehr gut gelungen. In bestimmten Fällen habe ich auch die Melodie etwas verändert.
Very well, and in certain cases I changed the melody line a little too.
Du hast gerade davon gesprochen, dass du einige neue Arrangements für die deutsche Version gemacht hast. Hören wir uns ein Beispiel an. Den Refrain von Not One of Us, zuerst in Englisch, dann in Deutsch. Was war der wichtigste Aspekt bei der Produktion der deutschen Version?
I think that the thing that I concentrated on was the sound. There were
Am meisten habe ich mich auf den Sound konzentriert. Zwischen dem Klang der deutschen und englischen Texte gibt es starke Unterschiede. Obwohl ich geringe Deutschkenntnisse von der Schule her hatte und viele Zeit darauf verwendet habe, mit Horst Königstein die deutschen Texte durchzudiskutieren, habe ich einige Textpassagen mehr von der Klangmalerei her betrachtet als vom Sinn der Worte. Wenn du eine Zeile fertig hast, dann hat sie eine bestimmte Identität von diesem Augenblick an. Das Ganze in einer anderen Sprache zu machen, hat mir die Möglichkeit verschafft, eine andere Version zu bringen. Als Beispiel der Song No Self-Control. Da gibt es die Zeile I don't know how to stop.
No self-control. Forgetting it already. This is the line in English. Don't know how to stop. I don't know how to stop. And in the German it was Ich hör nie wieder auf. Now, instead of doing the same
Anstatt es im gleichen Rhythmus zu machen, habe ich den Rhythmus der deutschen Sprache verwendet, um die Melodie zu verändern.
Ich hör nie wieder auf. Ich hör nie wieder. Or I think maybe the second one was Ich hör nie wieder auf. So it was.
Es gibt dem Ganzen einen völlig anderen Charakter.
And this I liked because it gives it a different character.
The themes of the songs you wrote for this album, that's very much critic on society. Die Texte deiner Songs beinhalten sehr viel Gesellschaftskritik. Glaubst du, ist das ein Weg, um junge Leute zum Nachdenken zu bringen?
I don't think that you can change the world through music. I think it was a very naive view.
Ich glaube nicht, dass man mit Musik die Welt verändern kann. Das war eine sehr naive Anschauung der Hippie-Generation in den 60er Jahren und vielleicht auch während der Punkwelle. Man kann vielleicht Leute beeinflussen, dass sie ein bisschen nachdenken. Rockmusik ist in erster Linie Spannung, Energie, Sound. Die Texte sind zweitrangig.
Excitement, sound, energy first. And lyrics are secondary.
Wie bist du auf die Idee zum Song Schnappschuss gekommen? Das Lied über einen Menschen, der einen politischen Mord begeht. Man denkt dabei an den Mord an Präsident Kennedy, das Attentat auf einen Repräsentanten einer verhassten Gesellschaft. Ein heißes Thema in unserer Zeit des Terrors.
Well, a book a friend of mine had was called Diary of an Assassin.
Ein Buch, das ein Freund von mir hatte, hieß Tagebuch eines Attentäters von Arthur Bremer, jener Mann, der zuerst Präsident Nixon gejagt hat und dann ein Attentat auf Gouverneur Wallace verübt hat. Durch dieses Notizbuch lernt man die Gedanken dieses Menschen zu sehen und vielleicht zu verstehen.
But you begin to see his mind and understand maybe. And I think it's very dangerous.
Ich glaube, es ist sehr gefährlich, wie die Leute manchmal Kriminelle, Terroristen oder Fremde betrachten. Als Außenseiter vollkommen anders.
Outside.
Peter Gabriel and Shock the Monkey, and here in the studio is Peter Gabriel. Welcome, Peter. Now, as we were saying before that track, you had a very busy day last Saturday. It was your reunion with Genesis at Milton Keynes. It must have been a pretty wet reunion, mustn't it, judging by the weather?
Yeah, we had filthy weather. It started about 6 a.m. and went on to about 2 a.m, solid rain. And the day before was perfect and the day after was perfect. But
you had to pick one day out of 7 years, and that was the one. What sort of show was it for the benefit of people who didn't go? Was it a Genesis show or a Peter Gabriel show or what?
Well, first I just want to say that it's amazing for the audience because they waited out for about 6 hours in the rain, so I wanted to get that over. It was mainly old stuff. We thought in return for us getting our fingers in their pockets, we tried to give them what we thought they might want out of the combination of the six of us, although we had a bonus with Steve Hackett coming back.
Oh, he was back there as well. Yeah. So were you all dressed up and everything? Because Genesis, sort of early 70s, were well known for fantastically theatrical presentations.
Well, there was a little burst, you know. I tried to control it. I've seen a doctor, but it still gets the better of me.
One of the things that struck me about it was, I mean, you split from Genesis 7 years ago. Was it very difficult to, or were you presumably not as familiar as you were with the old material? How did you go about it?
You could say that. I was never good at remembering words, but this time I had to watch the lips of the front row very closely.
This concert was am I right, a benefit to recoup some of the losses made on the accrued on the WOMAD festival, which you were one of the prime backers of. How did you go about organising that fantastic festival with extraordinary breadth of artists there?
Yeah. Can I say too there that here I am messing up your interview. There was one or two mentions suggesting that Genesis had actually got some money out of that, and although they're often portrayed as very unhip and exploitative capitalist men of the rock world, it's entirely down to them now that the WOMAD movement can move or struggle or crawl forward, and they didn't get anything out of it.
That's good. How did you go about getting people like the Burundi drummers and all sorts of odd acts from all over the world? How do you get them to Shepton Mallet? I mean, presumably
they're all in the yellow
agency.
pages. You let your fingers do the walking. But, well, we went into it really knowing FA about the subject, really. You know, we just liked some certain sounds and noises and thought that there was a lot that was interesting us and a lot of other rock musicians getting turned on by it. So we approached embassies, music colleges, anyone with a record collection, folk record shops, and there was a group of people in Bristol that were doing most of the scouting, and some of the connections were very hairy, and we couldn't believe the amount of bureaucracy. But when you actually got to meet the Minister for Youth, Culture and Sport from Burundi, who came with his drummers, you know, he's a very reasonable bloke, but actually getting through to them is a little different.
Yeah.
The festival reputedly lost a sum of about £200,000. What did it actually cost to put on?
I'd say a lot.
Is that a rough estimate or a specific figure?
Well, I don't, what do they call it? Guesstimation in America, I think, yeah.
So now
it was a lot of money. Yeah. And I think we naively assumed that we had an event with more appeal than it actually had. I'm very hopeful that even if we can't continue, the idea is going to be pushed through by some others, because if nothing else, we showed that a rock audience could give a standing ovation to a 50-year-old Chinese horn player. And that was great.
Now, most people very often come on this program to plug albums, and you've brought something very intriguing here. Would you like to tell us what this is it?
Yeah, well, it's my role as a travelling salesman. This time this is the Kids Pack, which is a group of the WOMAD people put out. And I'm sure it will be available from 59 Solsbury Avenue. But essentially we want to see a lot of schools taking up these booklets, and an introduction to cultures of all sorts of different places, and we'd still like to get the involvement of lots more rock people in introducing kids to these things, because if the people that appear on the rock programs are introducing and getting turned on to this stuff, it's much more interesting than if the local education office is pushing it.
Briefly, is there any chance of another WOMAD next year?
Not next year, certainly, but I hope something similar will definitely happen. Whether we can be involved with it remains to be seen, but I think things look optimistic towards clearing our way out of this mess at the moment.
Thanks very much, Peter Gabriel, and best of luck with your own album, which we don't seem to have got around to mentioning, but I think WOMAD is a very good cause.
Best of luck with your many ventures.
For this unique satellite discussion, Eno brought together a handful of the most interesting and outspoken musical figures from both sides of the Iron Curtain.
This is Peter Gabriel. The program is part of a process of you coming out into our world and if you like, perhaps beginning to get entrenched in our market systems. I mean, what are your attitudes towards getting successful in the West? As individuals get very successful, they tend to mix with less people and they live a particular lifestyle. I think the way to keep things moving and keep things changing is, one, to allow yourself enough time out of being a professional musician or a star in inverted commas, but you can absorb other influences, that you can meet other people, that you can still be open in a way that you were before you had success.
I have a lot of fond memories of those days. I think it was a great experience for all the bands. The idea was that we'd all be going out as a sort of introductory tour for the music of all three of us. But Lindisfarne were definitely the big cheese at the time, and I remember there was, as Ray said, some sense of competition and rivalry, but I think a real sense of friendship developed over the tour, and it was very different types of music and different backgrounds, different sets of people, but there was, I think, a real companionship which grew up. Fred Munt was the tour manager at one point, and because I think Lindisfarne particularly were attracting quite a lot of fans at that point. He got into his head this idea of sort of a need for security and a sort of sense of rushing his artistes out of the dressing room. So at one point he had the entire tour crawl out of a bathroom window at the back of some theatre onto the tour bus to avoid these hordes of fans around the front of the building. And then the bus, of course, drove round past the front of the building, and there was just a couple of old ladies there.